we're going to see more of my hands today than me because well, other than I'm in my pajamas, the projects that I have going are a little more detailed, and I want you to pay attention to the projects, not to me. I'm trying to get my Facebook set up really quick so that I can see you on my tablet rather than because I won't be able to see the comments today. If you have any comments or questions, I'm going to try to get them set up here where I'll be able to see those on my tablet. And then today is going to be a burst of several, and there I am, several small, see, I'm trying to, it's really odd when you're doing this if you've not done this before. It's not, what y'all are seeing and what's going on my, in front of me are delayed. So I'm trying to get the canvas centered in front of the, the camera for you. There we go. I think that's going to be close enough. We're going to, throughout the day, do several videos, and I'm wanting this one just to focus on this, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in some of the others so you can decide now whether to take your time and pop back in. This one, I have a 12 by 12 canvas under here. Love 12 by 12 canvases. I don't know what my thing is with these square ones, but I love them. And they're the perfect size for a piece of scrapbook paper. And I wanted to grab some Christmas paper this morning, and before I could even get to it, I found this beautiful paper. And I thought, what a beautiful paper for an angel to be on. And an angel's what I'm going to paint today, partially with brushes and partially with palette knives. So I thought that's the paper we would go with. But I do want to show you for later on so you can decide whether you want to come back on for those or not. These are some ornaments that I've worked on before. And I took a sponge just in some of the multi-surface paints. I got these at Walmart. They're, you know, nothing big there, but I wanted, instead of my regular acrylic paints, I wanted to try those. And I put on a speckled background with a sponge on those. These are the ones that I actually filled up the hole. This one was with DIY's Golden Ticket, but I filled up the hole and did the paint from the inside. And it does have a much better paint finish, so I will probably do a little bit of both. And here's one of the simplistic angels. It'll probably be something very similar to this that we do on that angel project. So if you want to pop in for that later, I'm going to try to make all of these be pretty quick today. As far as the supplies I got out a couple of my favorite palette knives and just a stiff brush that I got at Tuesday morning. This one is Grumbacher, if that's even how you pronounce it, flat, and I just wanted something stiff. And I grabbed a few, I'm going to go with just neutrals around this. We'll need a flesh tone later, so I grabbed unbleached titanium for that. And then for around the edges, just trying to go with neutrals but still match the thing here, I'll probably go with these two here, the yellow ochre and the burnt umber. And you can just grab a couple of paints of any sort, this kind or that kind. You know, I prefer the Blick. And then whatever, and I left all my palettes at work, so this is that palette paper. Got it marked down at Hobby Lobby a while back, and very grateful to have it today, so I don't have to walk back downstairs to get a paper plate. And here we go. Here's the idea that I'm going to do on this. I'm going to tear this paper. And if you're not a scrapbooker and haven't used scrapbook paper a lot, these are the little tips that I absolutely love about that. When you're tearing your paper, we're going to tear all around the edges of this. But when you're tearing your paper, you want to tear the part that you're going to throw away down and the part that you're going to keep up, because let me tear a little bit more and you can see that. And I'm not trying to stay straight with this, I want it to be crooked, but see all this white part? You don't want that showing up on top of the part that's going to be in your project. You want to throw away that part or save it for another mixed media project, which, you know, all scrapbookers are. You know, if you've got a piece of paper this big, you're going to save it thinking you need it for something. But so we're going to tear around the edges, and no particular reason rhyme or reason as to how wide or how narrow any of it is. This is an organic way of doing it. Just get it done, and it'll be how it's supposed to be. Let's see, I'm continuing to pull down on this one and up on this one, so all the ugly edges will not have to be dealt with on top of my project. And I know my hand's probably in your way. I'm tearing from the bottom there. And I am going to save these pieces in case I need them for something. Okay, so look for, you know, what's sort of a top and a bottom on your paper. I really don't know if there is a top and a bottom on this. Every time I look and say, okay, those roses are going this way, I'll flip it around. Now those roses are going this way. Then I think, well, there's that clock. There's the 12. That should be up. But then it's down on the other end, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. And the first thing I'm going to do is good old Mod Podge. Anyone you've got the, I wish I had the antiquing one in here for this, but it's probably in one of the tote bags that I tote back and forth from work. You can use either side of your paper, and what's so cool about that is these scraps I saved, all the best paper always has two sides, but see how that's going to coordinate well in there if I decide to use that for anything later on. So I'm going to set that aside and first just get to the majority of this, get a coat of the Mod Podge on. And it doesn't have to be Mod Podge. It doesn't have to be Mod Podge brand. I often use like the DIY liquid patina. Can be used as a, you know, like a gluing down agent for decoupage. But I have this, I have this right here. And I know that, you know, most everybody has some Mod Podge of some sort, so if you're wanting to do this, you'll not feel like you have to go out and get supplies. And that's the important part of what I was trying to show with this today. If you don't have a canvas, you might have to go get a canvas, but if you don't, this could go on a board, this could go on a piece of cardboard for all that matters. It the backing isn't really going to matter. I chose this one because it's one of the thicker edged pieces, and because I had it, and I have it because Michael's put them on sale a while back at 70% off, and I ordered myself several of them, and so I'm still living on that good sale. So I'm just going to put a coat down and stick my paper down, and it really doesn't matter which way because we can always turn this canvas around later. And I could have put some more, and probably should have. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the back of this as well. Let me set this to the side and get a little more Mod Podge on here. Sometimes that canvas can be thirsty, and so we're gonna make sure and put plenty on there because we're gonna come back later today to do the angel. I think we're gonna see how this dries. I would like it to dry a little bit so I don't get Mod Podge all over my hands when I'm trying to paint on it. But one more tip, if you've not done paper a lot, is if you've torn it, see how the white edges are on here, the ones that we were trying to avoid by tearing it the other way. If those do show, you would just take any kind of ink pad. I have these Distress ink pads also just from Hobby Lobby, and let me show you real quick. You would take your dark part that's showing and just age it with this. See how good that looks? And that way the white doesn't show and it ages your piece, and boom, done. But we're going to be using paint on this later. So even the good sides of this, I would normally, if I was using this for scrapbooking and I wasn't going to come back later and paint an angel on it, I would go around all of these edges. Even though you don't see the white, I would still go around them with a dark brown ink of some sort. You could do it with a marker if that's all you have. You could do it with paint. You can do it with anything, whatever you have. You don't always have to go buy new materials, and you can do those. But anyways, I always go around the edges, whether the white part is exposed or just the dark part, because that's that extra little step that you can put in there that's a finishing touch that makes your piece look better than when you don't do it. I love to scrapbook, and that's something I do with a group of friends. We don't get to do it as often as we used to, but sort of what happens is, as much as you love scrapbooking as you love collecting scrapbook paper, and I have way more scrapbook paper than I will ever use in my lifetime. I hope that my grandkids like to scrapbook, and when they inherit all that stuff, or it'll be in a good garage sale somewhere. But anyway, so you have all these papers, and sometimes you're like, man, I wish I I don't have time to do that much scrapbooking, and now there's some more pretty paper. Go ahead and buy it. Sometimes you can get this stuff for 10 cents a sheet. You know, that's cheap to have something beautiful that you can use on anything. This is, you know, this is not scrapbooking. I could have made a Christmas card out of this, a birthday card, or something like that. I could make a scrapbook page, and, you know, a funky mixed media piece, which I love to do those. Maybe later in the year we'll do some, in next year we'll do some of those type of mixed media pieces. But right now, the holidays always puts me in a angel mood. Angels and chapels. I paint my share of them at this time of the year. So we're just now putting a layer of Mod Podge or whatever. I used to call this Mod Podge, but it's not. It's Mod Podge. On top too. It generally doesn't show. This is a very thick piece of paper, and so I'm putting a lot on here. If it would have been a thinner paper, I wouldn't have had to use as much, but you want it on top too, because you want a layer between what you're going to paint and this paper, so that it doesn't soak through to the paper later on and, you know, cause the paper to bubble up. But this is going to dry, you know, clear for the most part, and I am laying it on thick because I want to make sure that y'all can see it, and I want to make sure this heavy paper sticks down. If you don't have any scrapbook paper and you're still wanting to do a project like this could very well be done. Let me show you this real quick. This is what I'm going to use later on the jewelry box project that I'm hoping to do. Just grab some Christmas napkins. They're everywhere right now. You can get them at the dollar store or whatever, probably less than $1 a pack. And you just pull them apart to where they're one layer. Let's see, we'll go over this in another video, but you just pull them apart to where you just get the printed part. Save this for other projects to give texture or blow your nose on if you need to. But so you could use a napkin to decoupage on here to get your background. You could use let's see, what else could you use? Christmas wrapping paper. Goodness knows we all have some left over from last year somewhere, and then you think you got to go buy new this year. Or what I always do is when it's 80% off a couple of days after Christmas, I go and buy a boo-honkus load of it to put in my closet. Then I forget about that and I go buy new the next year. And so we always have some pretty paper, and it could be, you know, birthday paper you put back there, floral paper, Christmas paper, whatever you want. Just get something that has a beautiful pattern or color or something that you like on there, and tear it around the edges and get some decoupage medium of some sort on there. Okay, I don't need to be fiddling with that anymore. I'm just making sure that all my edges are down, and it's starting to dry, so I don't want to fiddle fart with that anymore. I just said fart on the video. How about that? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the next part. If I was just doing this by myself, I possibly would wait. Oh, I know I got that out of the thing a little bit. I'm going to set this to the side and get myself some paint out. I'm going to use this yellow ochre. Doesn't matter what brand. I like the Blick because it's less expensive, but it's still heavier bodied, which means thicker. And I may need more or less in here, but there's just what I squirted out for myself to start with. And I'm going to use this big one because I have it here, and why not? And let's flip it to the side and go ahead and get our sides while that top's drying. This doesn't have to be perfect. It sometimes looks better when it isn't perfect. I'm just going to go around all the edges and try to get some of the I like to always finish my edges, because sometimes when you're through, if you're like me, when I'm done, then I'm bored with it. I'm ready to move on to the next thing, and I'm not wanting to mess with having to try to find a frame, or, you know, when it hangs up on the wall, it looks finished this way. And that's the good thing about getting the wider sided canvases too. They definitely look finished, and it doesn't need anything else like a frame or anything to go on it. I didn't get out enough. where you can see it. Hopefully. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set this aside, and as soon as we're done with this part of the video, we've got just a few more minutes left here, and let this dry. And then in a couple of hours, I have a conference call I need to do at 1 o'clock, and I'll probably eat some lunch and all that. Before then, we're going to work on some ornaments. But I'll come back to this in the early part of the afternoon. I'll probably, after my phone call, run down there and put some kind of dinner in the crock pot so it doesn't look like I spent my whole day crafting, and I can do my good fun wife stuff. Come out smelling like a rose at the end of the day. I ran down to, we have a freezer. We grow our own cows and stuff like that here. We live on a farm. So I went down to the freezer at my husband's barn and got some tenderized round steak. Don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it yet. We don't eat much flour and grains and things like that, because what I really want to do is like my mama used to do, and fry it and then put it in a gravy. But I have some sprouted grain spelt flour, and that doesn't seem to bother my stomach as much, so I may still fry it that way and try to make a gravy. But then we don't eat potatoes or rice or anything because of the carbs in there. It makes me feel bad. So, but we do have 2 sweet potatoes, and I was wondering if sweet potato fries underneath steak and gravy would taste good. My husband doesn't complain about any of that, so I think it doesn't matter. Okay, now I'm going to go to the darker one, and I'm not going to worry about going over the edges of this because I want to go over the edges of it a little bit. So, just coming in with it, coming in hot. Getting it on there and having it look kind of rough, and mixing in with this one is, what I say that was, this is the burnt umber, and I'm sort of just mixing it in with the yellow ochre. And always, this is the thing to remember too, just pick up your piece and flip it around. Don't try to make your arms reach all over the place. I end up with paint all the way up here all the time, but I do at least try to remember to flip it around so that I have easier access. To me, all the, like the rough edges of this and how it's not straight on there, and I'll go back over that in just a minute and I'll show you that. See, I got some of this brown on the edge here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to go with it. We pretend that's supposed to be there, and you put a little more on there. Here's the secret to that. Here's the secret of that. I'm always going too fast. Is you hold it, you put it way down here. You hold your palette knife very lightly, like way out there, like it's barely hanging there, and then you slowly let it glide over the side, and see how that looks much more organic and natural than the big blob I put there by being too rough with it. So maybe you'll be better than me at that. Thing is, whatever we do to it, nobody knows we didn't do that on purpose. Everything at the end, I've had days when I was first learning some of these techniques where I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I'm never going to be good at that. I suck, and all that kind of stuff. And then put it aside, go do something else, you know, frustrated or whatever, and go do something else, and then come back to it, you know, or find it again a few days later and think, man, I did good. Look how good that is. So don't judge yourself the first time you're doing something and expect it to, you know, be like a professional from the very first day, because you're better than you think you are already, and you just don't know it yet. Okay, didn't get enough of this one out either. Get just a squirt more. Get this side because I want it kind of thick up there. And this will dry right over that Mod Podge. I am not worried one bit about, you know, the Mod Podge not being dry before I put this on. It'll work out how it's supposed to. So now I'm going to try to go very lightly back over it. Let's see, make sure I can get it down here where y'all can see. Holding it like I'm supposed to. And the lighter you pull it, the better the deposit of it. If I put a big old blob on this end, this is a crazy thing I've learned too. If I put a big old blob, let me show you. Big old blob like this on the end, you would think if I was to come straight down here, that would make a thick line. But if I come straight down here and I push hard, let me show you on here, and I push hard, well, now I lied. Normally, you push hard, and I guess I'm normally not holding the paper up that way, and your line doesn't show. But if you have it on there and you barely touch it down, you get such a beautiful line. Okay, so I'm gonna, and I like mine rounded off a little bit, so I'm gonna kind of round my corners a little. Grab a little bit of this dark for the sides that don't have it yet. You see? I went too hard, but it still looks all right. Easy, easy, easy. And just because one side has a lot on it, you're not wanting everything to be symmetrical. I'm grabbing a little bit more. You're wanting each to be organically its own self, so it doesn't look like a machine made it. We are people, and we need, or we have imperfections. Try to spread it a little farther out there. Kind of round the corners a little. Okay, that's it for this one. I'm going to set this aside to dry. Grab a little more of this because it's on there, so why not try to go a little farther in with it. Just use up the paint that's on my palette. I'm not wanting to cover up the designs of my roses. I mean, that's the reason I picked this paper to begin with. But to bring a little bit of this here and there down through there will be nice, because I'm probably just going to go with like a cream color and off-white or something for the most part on my angel later. So I hope you will run and grab a canvas and some kind of paper, whatever kind of paper that you have there available to you, and that you will join me this afternoon and let's put an angel on our canvas. So there you go with that one for today. I'm happy with it. What a mess on my thing here, and one palette knife's all I dirtied up. And we'll set this aside to dry and come back later today. Thanks for joining me. And please share.